Hi guys, this is Andrew Linhart from the Grid Weekly team, and I'm back with a preseason edition of the Power Rankings. As you know, these rankings will be compiled approximately every 3 to 4 in-game weeks and then brought to you guys for your viewing and listening pleasure. If you do or don't agree with these rankings, please let us know in the comment section below. We look forward to that. And as always, smash that thumbs up button. It really does help. So, let's not waste time. Let's jump right into number 32 through number 11. We'll take a peek and see if there's any big changes there. Alright, I will admit these rankings were a bit tough, considering preseason isn't necessarily a telling sign of who will do well and who won't do well. So, bear with me. Unfortunately for the Lions and the Ravens, I currently have them still at the bottom as number 32 and number 31. They've had okay preseasons, but they didn't have the greatest off seasons, and I just don't see them improving that much. Some other surprises: the Raiders and Texans, who I do have ranked fairly low, have had pretty good preseasons. I believe one was 3-1 at the time I made this, and one was 2-1 at the time I made this. So they look pretty solid, but both of them had average to poor off seasons, and only time is going to tell if these teams have found the winning ways or if they're just having good preseasons against other teams' backups. All right, let's look at two notable drops from the last power rankings. The biggest drop is the Chargers. I believe last time we had them at 7 or 8 maybe, and the Bills. The Bills dropped honestly a little bit more, I suppose. So let's look at the Bills first. They have a solid squad, probably one of the best built teams in the grid. But since there was a change in ownership, we haven't really gotten a chance to look at how that team's going to operate post-Grimy era. So that's kind of why they're down that low. I have them at 21. I don't expect them to stay down there. I expect them to be, if not top 10, pretty close to top 10 pretty soon. Then let's look at the Chargers. Chargers were in the top 10 all last season, and they made the playoffs. They had an okay offseason, acquiring some key players to the lineup, but one spot they did not improve upon is the quarterback position. I don't understand why. I know they missed a couple of the free agent signing stages, and that kind of eliminated some of the bigger name quarterbacks, and then in the draft, they were number 22 or 26, and honestly, no quarterback was worth taking there. So it is what it is. The quarterback position is the most important on the field, and right now the Chargers are going to enter the season with 3 or 4 possible starters in their depth chart. So who's going to be their starter? Trust me, your guess is as good as mine. All right. Let's look at another notable change, and this time it's for the better. Let's look at the Bengals. I believe the Bengals were 22 or 23 last time, and I have them jumping all the way to number 14. Part of that's due to a very, very solid preseason, but more than anything, it's the offseason they had. They shored up their O-line for sure, and safety positions, which were the weak spots, as well as they added some depth in other areas. So the Bengals are an interesting team because consistency is what they lacked last season. So if they can be consistent, I think we're going to see a much better Bengals team. Other than that, 32 through 11, they're pretty straightforward. A couple teams I do expect to either move up or down. The Bucks have looked solid, so I expect them to be, I have them at 11. That's probably pretty fair. I do expect the Bills to take a jump. I hope the Chargers take a jump. And then possibly the 49ers. They're kind of a dark horse. So we'll see. Let's go ahead and jump into that top 10. And number 10, we have the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm not going to lie, I had a very hard time deciding who to put at number 10 because, honestly, it's so scattered out right now. But I finally landed on the Vikings just due to their success last season and their continued success this preseason. The Vikings have pretty much strength at every position, and they brought in Cam Jordan to improve their defensive line, So honestly, barring any setbacks, I think the Vikings are going to have a solid season, and I foresee them winning the NFC North. I don't really see that being a hard division for them to win. Let's move to number 9, and this might come as quite a surprise because last power ranking they were at number 32, but the Dallas Cowboys. This team sat at number 32 almost all of last season. The quarterbacks down there in Dallas were throwing picks left and right, kind of like the Chargers are right now. But they're under new ownership, and once that ownership took place of the team toward the end of last season, we saw some flashes of what we might see this season. So they've had a very solid preseason, and I think they're going to be primed for a very good season. NFC East, I think you have to watch out for the Eagles, but I mean, Cowboys and Eagles are kind of, I think they're gonna butt heads. I think one of them makes playoffs and one of them doesn't. So it's going to kind of come down to probably those head-to-head matchups. All right, let's move on to number 8. Number 8, I have the Atlanta Falcons. So after a 10-6 season last year, Falcons decided to make some big changes. The largest change is Matty Ice is no longer a Falcon, and now Nathan Peterman is taking the helm. Peterman is definitely a downgrade, there's no doubt about that. But hopefully after their draft, which was primarily offensive linemen, hopefully that gives Peterman a little bit of time in the pocket so he can find some success down there. One note about the Falcons, though, is they really do need to look into their aging secondary, though. If changes don't come soon, they're going to be in the bottom 5 of the passing defense, I believe, and then I think that'll bump them down the rankings a bit. I think they have three cornerbacks over the age of 30, and then 28 and 29-year-old safeties. I mean, they got to figure something out if they're going to be struggling here before it's too long. So, but right now, I have them at number 8. Number 7, speaking of NFC East, is the Philadelphia Eagles. Last season, the Eagles were a quarterback away from having a great season, in my opinion. So they went out and signed Matt Ryan. While he's a little older, he's still Matt Ryan. He's still got the attributes that matter. So I think he's going to help their offense out tremendously. Now, when you look at their team, they do look a little bit weak at wide receiver. But I'm thinking their defense should help make up for the mishaps on offense. And speaking of defense, I look for Caleb Shepard to have a very large season and help this team go to a playoff run. Caleb Shepard is an absolute animal back there. So watch out for Shepard. Number 6, this one here might come as the biggest surprise of all. Carolina Panthers. So, Carolina Panthers went 16-0 last season. Had the perfect season. Then they end up losing in the playoffs, I believe in the divisional round. So, the main reason that I dropped this team is one important player on their team is no longer a Panther, and that is Cam Newton. And honestly, at this point, it's very unclear as to who their starting quarterback will be. I was looking at their roster, and they currently have 4 quarterbacks, all of which are rookies, and none of which are impressive. So, I do not look for these Panthers to go 16-0. If they can get a decent quarterback going, maybe 10-6 is in their future. But with the Bucs and the Falcons both doing well down there in that division, I'm going to predict the Panthers miss the playoffs this season. So we'll see if it happens, but that's my prediction right now. Panthers will not make the playoffs. All right, number 5. This team took a tumble as well. Not much of one, but the Jags. Part of this is simply due to their starting quarterback situation. Most likely, they're going to start the rookie they drafted, Roy Rutland. I believe they also have Connor Cook, who might share some snaps. So Rutland so far has shown a few moments of success, but he's a rookie, and mistakes will be made. There's no doubt about that. And also, if you dig into their roster, they're a little bit slow at safety positions. So with all the speedy receivers that are coming out of these drafts, having slow safeties is probably not going to help you out. And I have a bad feeling about the Jags defense that was so good last season. I think they're going to tumble down the defensive rankings, which will tumble them down the power rankings. So, all right, we're going to stay in the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. Honestly, the Titans didn't really do anything but get better this offseason. They didn't lose anybody notable, in my opinion. They didn't really add anybody super impressive, but they filled in some holes they had. Last season, they finished 9-7 after they struggled in the second half of the season. This Titans team, I do not think will have that struggle in the middle of the season. So I look for the Titans to come out guns a-blazing, and I think they're going to take one of the AFC wild cards. I don't think they're going to win the AFC South. I think another team's going to win that. But I do think the Titans make it with one of the wild cards. All right. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is the Cleveland Browns. A little bit of a shakeup here. The Browns have bounced up and down the top 10 in every power ranking so far. This time, after this offseason, they've added Big Ben. Not sure if he's going to start or if he's going to just be used to mentor Kaiser. Regardless, I look for Big Ben to be an asset to the team, as well as they added some other nice pieces via free agency in the draft. Bucky Hodges is a tight end that they added, and they already have their David Njoku, but Bucky Hodges is like 6'5", 6'6". He's got blazing fast speed, and he's very athletic. With 2 amazingly athletic, speedy tight ends, I look for both of them to excel, and I look for Bucky Hodges to be a playmaker for that Browns team. Now, in the draft, one thing I noticed is they seem to focus a lot on the cornerback position, and I think they got 1 or 2 O-linemen. But the biggest takeaway is the first round they drafted cornerback Avant. He's a little slow in the developing, learning the playbook and all that stuff, but I think if he can develop a little bit at that cornerback position, I think he's primed to be one of the starters real fast. The Browns haven't really shown much of a weakness yet, and after a solid season, I honestly think that they will continue that success. And let's move on to number 2. Number 2, this is probably a little bit high, but I have the Arizona Cardinals. Honestly, I've liked what I've seen of this team. They do not have the most talented roster, no doubt about that. But they have shown that despite the lack of the abilities, they can still play with the best of the best. So I look for the Cardinals to continue that success. I do, however, think a lot is going to ride on the health of some of their big-name players. Quarterback Lane Vinson, David Johnson, and their starting right tackle Zachary Murray are currently all down for the count right now, missing multiple weeks. So I think if the Cardinals can overcome some of those injuries and wait till their guys get healthy, I look for the Cardinals to make another deep playoff run. And if you've been paying attention, the number 1 team in my preseason power rankings is the Indianapolis Colts. Honestly, not much to say here. I tried finding a team that I could put above them at the number 1 spot, but I just couldn't. No one else is worthy of the number 1 spot. So when you look at the Colts, when Andrew Luck is your backup, you're doing things right. And if you look at their offseason they had, the team only got better and stronger. Barring any major setbacks this team has, I have no doubt in my mind that this team wins the AFC South. They will probably get a first-round bye and make another deep run in the playoffs. I don't see any other team being able to dethrone the Colts as of right now. That could change in a few weeks, so we'll see. But as of right now, I just don't see it. All right, well, that wraps up the Grid Weekly Power Rankings. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Again, these rankings are going to come out approximately every 4 in-game weeks. So the next set of power rankings that you see might be shaken up just a bit depending on how the season unfolds. Because right now, I'm just going off of how they did last season and their off season. I'm trying not to take preseason into account too much just because preseason is kind of, people play it more carefree. They experiment in the preseason. So if you agree or disagree, please let us know in the comment section below. But until next time, this is Andrew Linhart of the Grid Weekly Team, signing off.